Well, hi everyone. Today's Zoom call is to discuss the role that gut health plays in our vitality and our longevity. And I have three sections that I plan to discuss with you today. We're going to cover what is the microbiome. We're going to discuss how does it work and what does it control and regulate. And then we're going to finish with what can we specifically do to optimize our gut health. And I wanted to tell you something before we get going. I want to let you know, I didn't just Google gut health and create a copy paste presentation. This content is curated by Dr. Gabrielle Fondaro. She has a PhD in human nutrition and exercise from Virginia Tech. And she's a research scientist, she's an educator and a presenter. And interestingly, also, she's a weightlifter. But so I'm presenting information from her ebook, which I have like a picture of the cover page here. But it's 130 pages and it's very elaborate. But I hope to make her proud. So I plan to send her this after we're done. And so we'll see how I do. So I first wanted to share some information that I found very interesting. And most people have heard of this famous character in history. His name's Hippocrates, and he's considered the father of modern medicine. And he lived 400 years before Christ, so approximately 2,400 years ago. And it's believed that he lived until age 90, which is pretty significant for that era. But some of his well-known quotes include, "Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food. Walking is the best medicine, and all disease begins in the gut." And I think that's very interesting. I think we're going to find that this is quite accurate view of longevity because many chronic metabolic conditions are believed to be influenced by chronic gut inflammation. So in our first section, let's cover the microbiome. So what the heck is this? Well, the first thing to know is that there are four primary ecosystems of living organisms in our body and on our skin. They consist of the intestines, which we call the gut, our mouth, our skin, and our reproductive organs. These communities account for literally trillions of living bacteria, virus, fungi, and other organisms, mostly bacteria. We are the host, and they are the resident communities. So comparing living microbes, the count of those to human cells, it's about a 1-to-1 comparison, which is pretty wild. So altogether, these creatures weigh about 2 to 5 pounds, and that's about the same weight as our brain. So, what is the job of the microbes? How do they help us? So this leads us into section 2. How does the gut microbiome work? What does it regulate? Gut bacteria are directly involved with critical human functions, such as metabolism, digestion and absorption of nutrients, brain function, including mood and pain. Our immune system, as a matter of fact, they account for up to 70% of the immune response, and controlling inflammation. So all these things are absolutely vital to our health and our longevity. And then now for section 3, how do we achieve gut health? So one important point to make here is that there are harmful bacteria in us and good bacteria. And thus we are striving to seek stronger representation of the good bacteria and fewer of the bad bacteria. Simplistically, we should seek to feed our good bacteria with key fiber nutrients called prebiotics, which we're going to get into in a minute, and then starve our bad bacteria by limiting things like processed foods, excess sugar, stress, excess alcohol, things like that. So what is considered optimal is a couple things. One is a concept known as microbiome diversity, and the other is maintaining a healthy weight, which you'll also hear people talk about as remaining in energy balance, comparing your calories in to your calories out. So below this is from Dr. Fondaro, a list right out of her book. This is a list of key lifestyle contributors to gut health. So first on the list is different kinds and colors of foods. Next is foods which are considered to be nutrient dense. And what does that mean? That just means lots of vitamins and minerals per calorie. Next is you want to seek fiber. And I have a shocking statistic regarding fiber. Only about 5% of Americans are getting their recommended daily allowance of fiber. So that's just really crazy. We also need to get sufficient amount of water or hydration. We need good quality and amounts of sleep. Um, Exercise helps microbiome diversity. And this is, you have to pair this with adequate rest and recovery. And then specifically listed is omega-3 fatty acids. And we know that those come from things like salmon, nuts, avocado, olive oil, and omega-3 supplements. And then we're going to talk about fermented foods, and we'll dive into that just a little bit more in a bit as well. So it is believed that up to 60% of bacterial diversity can be influenced by diet and exercise. 10% comes from our ancestors, so family history. And the rest, 30%, it comes from shared human traits, such as age, gender, and even geography. So before we get more specifically into foods that optimize gut health, I want to give you some notes on protein from Dr. Fundaro, since protein is a big part of our recomp strategy. She states that studies show that high protein diets lead to improved body composition and reduced appetite. But they have also linked regular consumption of red and processed meats to things like colorectal cancer and inflammatory bowel disease. So just know that this can be managed easily. So eat red meat in moderation, choose lean cuts, and also choose organic meats. And what that does is it'll minimize the antibiotic content, which often is used to speed up the growth of the animals. She concludes by saying that a high protein diet is healthy, especially with the inclusion of adequate fiber. And there too, again, the recommended daily allowance for men is 38 grams of fiber per day. So before we look into food specifics, I want to make something pretty clear, and that is Coach Chase on our team is our dedicated nutrition specialist. He has education and credentials in this area, and I am merely giving information on foods that appear to optimize the bacteria microbiome. So, okay, with that said, the best foods to use and avoid include, and I'll give you a spoiler alert, this list is largely the slow carb diet. So again, first on the list is going to be the different colors, different kinds, and not just talking about fruits and vegetables, but even proteins. So seek variety in your weekly meal planning, menu planning. All veggies, beans, preferred low fructose fruit, especially berries. Avoid added sugars. Seek high fiber foods. And then consider fermented foods. And essentially, fermented foods is the same thing as saying probiotics. So probiotics stimulate growth of the good bacteria. And what's on the list for fermented foods would be things like yogurt, non-fat yogurt, and then another product which I just found out about and started trying a couple days ago. It's called kefir. And I brought a little picture or a sample to show you guys. I don't know if I'm showing it very well, but you can find it at your grocery store. It's going to have higher nutritional value and more prevalent good bacteria than non-fat Greek yogurt. Also on the fermented list would be kimchi, which is fermented, I guess, cabbage, radishes, and onions. So I know some people might throw it in eggs or something like that. I've not tried it myself. And then kombucha, which is a fermented drink, which I think is kind of good. And I've tried that quite a bit in the past. And then last but not least is a food category that microbes love to feast on, and that is known as prebiotic foods. So the very definition of a prebiotic food is it's a soluble fiber, meaning it breaks down with water, but it's metabolized by our microbes. So again, this feeds and fuels our good bacteria, and human cells cannot otherwise digest these foods. The classic list of prebiotic foods includes the following: garlic, lentils, legumes, onions, asparagus, bananas, watermelon, grapefruit, almonds, pistachios, seeds, and cocoa beans. And cocoa beans are used, as you guys probably know, in the making of chocolate. And this particular item might be why Alan Aragon says that chocolate is the portal to immortality. I'm just kind of figuring that out now. So again, it's important to know that prebiotics are the feast of choice for our good bacteria friends. And I want to geek out for a minute and explain why this is vital to our overall health. So remember that when you eat these prebiotic foods, it's not your body that breaks them down, it's the bacteria in your large intestine. The key molecule that's produced in this process is called short chain fatty acids. And the body absorbs 95% of these acids. And then they directly aid in weight control, blood sugar balance, and the reduced risk of various diseases. So they're really, really valuable nutrients. So, in conclusion, we are the human Airbnb hosts of trillions of living inhabitants whose job it is to govern our immunity, our inflammation, and our metabolism. So, if you want to live a long life like Hippocrates, then you want a healthy gut, which is created by the food and exercise in our body recon program. So I essentially went pretty quickly there, but that concludes my prepared comments and overview of the gut microbiome. But if anyone has any questions, be happy to take those from you now.
Hey, Brett. Really
Hello.
interesting stuff. Couple questions for you. So I was wondering, I know a lot of people do like a pre-workout kind of drink, and in that pre-workout drink, they'll include like apple cider vinegar and some other, I think they're prebiotics. Would you recommend that?
This is a good question, and I do have an opportunity to get into a 201, which I'm calling it. Dr. Gabrielle Fondaro and I are going to have a Zoom interview a couple Wednesdays from now, and I can even give you a teaser of what I'm going to get into. But apple cider vinegar, I've read a lot about. I don't have a good answer for you right now, but that's a great question, which I'll take to my interview with Dr. Fondaro.
And what about other probiotic supplements?
And I have read about that a little bit. And so what Dr. Fondaro says is in otherwise healthy people that probiotic supplements really aren't required or indicated, but they are very helpful if you've got an ailment or a specific condition you're dealing with. So I just was texting with my friend Grace, who has Crohn's disease, and she did verify that she's taken a probiotic for that condition. I also have a trainer friend at the gym that has some GI issues, and he sent me a picture of what he takes probiotic wise. So there too, it helps people dramatically that have a specific ailment that they're dealing with, but not necessarily indicated for otherwise healthy people.
Okay, great. And then also, thanks for showing us that bottle of kefir. I'm curious, can you tell me a little bit? So you switched from non-fat yogurt to the kefir. How are the like other macros in that? Is it still as good as like a non-fat yogurt, or is there more fat?
Yeah, great question. It's such a little font, and even with my glasses, I'm going to have a hard time with it. But it's 60 calories. And I know primarily it's going to give you some good protein and a lot more what's called community, oh my goodness, CFUs, which are communities of bacteria. So it does have a lot more good bacteria content than yogurt, but I'm not replacing the yogurt. I still love my yogurt with frozen berries in it. I was kind of doing a schedule of one in the morning and one in the evening, but I've been trying the kefir in the evening now. One thing I read was that kefir can actually act as a sleep aid because it induces serotonin. So it can help make you a little bit restful and sleepy. So I'm up for anything like that because I'm always looking for a good sleep hack, you know?
Interesting. Yeah, I know a lot of our guys are focusing on their sleep, so it's good to know.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then just before we conclude, I guess I'll give you a little teaser on what I want to learn more about, and I'll call it Gut Health 201. One is, and this is pretty interesting to me, and knowing that Dr. Fandaro is a weightlifter by hobby, there's a concept known as the gut muscle axis. So we know that muscle is the largest metabolically active tissue in our body. So I don't know if there's a lot of deep science or if it's more research being conducted right now, but I want to get into her brain around what she knows there for us kind of being muscle building enthusiasts. Another form of fiber, which I want to explore with her, and I'm going to say what I know, which is about this much, is called resistant starch. And I'll list a couple things. Legumes on there, which I guess legumes are pretty magical, but things like green bananas and cooked but cooled potatoes, which just sounds mysterious to me, but apparently these foods have some really good benefits for us that I want to learn more about. And then to be honest, I want to get us into some other things which are interesting to me, like the sun, exercise. One of the things that we talk about, that I talked about in one of my lectures was hormesis, and inside that one is a thing called autophagy, which is where we do our delayed eating or our nutrient deprivation temporary. And this is where the cells get cleaned up, or our body eats our own cells, so damaged cells get removed and stuff. I wonder if that has to do with gut health. And then, one of my favorite hobbies right now that I'm working on is earthing. So I kind of want to know what she has to say about that too. So I definitely get a good audience with a PhD expert that we can kind of delve into some of those things a little bit more. With that being said, was there any other questions, Lester, or you that covered what you wanted to talk about today?
No, I just have one comment though.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah, so you had mentioned Hippocrates, and it's fascinating. That was 400 years before Christ, and he lived till age 90, which is pretty amazing. But I also wanted to throw in that I believe that the code of ethics for doctors is called the Hippocratic Oath. So that's all, based on Hippocrates.
Absolutely. In fact, he's written over 70 books, and he's not just a historic ancient figure. There's a lot of stuff he wrote and believed and taught that's still being taught today. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I hope to make it to 90 also and
Yeah,
beyond. So
yeah, really, that'd be a
it's
solid
good
life.
stuff.
I agree. Well, thank you so much for the questions, and thank you guys. We'll get a recording made, and Lester will help me upload it to the application. And then thank you guys once again. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Brad.